great script. I guess it took them 20 some odd years to figure it out, and they did. And I was happy he called me.
The film opens with a shot of a hand through seeds.
Yeah.
I wondered, those themes of sort of earth and fertility that we see in contrast to the sort of death and destruction, how did that resonate for you when you were reading the script?
Well, that wasn't in the script initially. That was a Ridley idea, which is, I love telling that story because it didn't exist in the original script, I don't think. So it was Ridley attaching and kind of foreshadowing a bloodline relevance to the end of the first film with the hand in the wheat and now the hand in the grain is an elegant way to kind of ease that transition. And I think it's just the proximity of life and death in that cultural context was much closer than I think we experience today. So it's like, how do you bring an audience to that understanding?
You guys get the fun job of doing the thumbs up, thumbs down. What goes into a perfect thumbs up, thumbs down shot? And were you aware of Joaquin's mode at all?
Yes, the thumb up, thumb down was the scene that was haunting us, I think, personally speaking. It's, he just delivered that so masterfully, and referencing that in this film was, it felt like an important moment. So, yes, it was daunting, but ultimately, what a gift.
I was thinking iconography and all that stuff is like outside, after the fact, not decided by... doesn't come from the impulsive expression in art, and so when something moves you a lot and it means so much to you, which is true of Gladiator for us and for so many other people, it's still with that distance. And I think at the end of the day, that love is a kind of bedrock, but you have to throw it out the window too.
There's also so much in the film about death and sort of the idea of death having grandeur and there being a time to go and sort of nobility to it. How did that sort of impact your performance?
I think Lucius has lost everything, so he doesn't really care if he lives or dies, which I think makes him somebody who's difficult to fight against. Like, how do you fight against somebody when all the chips are down and they don't really care? Like, it makes him somebody who'll bite a lump out of a baboon's arm, or he'll just do whatever it takes to win and kind of not look after himself in combat. It makes him a good gladiator, I think.
I love seeing you be able to play rage as a spectrum. There wasn't just sort of one form. There was a feral and there's sort of very combative and thought out. What did you enjoy about exploring a sort of radius of rage?
I think I enjoyed it in comparison to the other roles that I've kind of got to play across my career. It's like a lot of the rage that I would have felt with other characters would have been very much internalized. And this is a character who, what he's feeling lives on the surface. And as an actor, I want to, it's not so much about the success, about how those things land with an audience. It's about pushing myself, and this was an opportunity to make it. There's something more traditionally leading man about this part that is fundamentally challenging, because I haven't done a lot of that.
How did you decompress after those rage scenes?
Like a sports massage and a stiff drink. That's the way to go with that, I think.
There's a very sort of Shakespearean sense to the way that power corrupts him over the course of the film. I wondered, are there any classic characters you felt he was emulating or was in conversation with?
I mean, he'd eat Hamlet if he wanted to or needed to, or kill him, or sleep with him.
I mean, that's another thing I found really interesting. He uses a sort of social and sexual confidence to manipulate people. How did you build that side of your performance?
From the inside out, like I always do. He wants to impose on others what was imposed on them.
What I loved about your characters is we see tyranny, but we see different versions of tyranny. You've sort of got like mania, petulance. So what did you enjoy about finding your ways to your different versions of tyranny and how you wanted them to interact?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that, thankfully, mania and petulance, I don't need to dig too far in my soul for them. They're always... No, I think we had to just explore it in the day, whilst also having a lot of... we had to come in with an idea of it, but I think it was one of those kind of things that watching Fred work would inform whatever choice I thought I should kind of explore, because there's this kind of symbiosis, there's this kind of this codependence, but also this kind of, they're moving in on the same frequency. So to kind of lean into that felt odd. Like I've never kind of done that before, so it was thrilling. But I think kind of the layers of kind of entitlement and tyranny, as you said, kind of would reveal itself as we kind of got further and further down the rabbit hole. Yeah,
I felt similarly inspired by Joe and our closeness, where I sort of felt like these characters, these people would break in complementary ways. You know, I would see him follow one kind of tyranny, and it would provoke me to push the boundary to this other one, if that makes sense. It was, I think, the more neurotic and controlling Gaeta gets inspires a kind of destruction and lack of caring that Caracalla sometimes does, which would only make both people more intense, if that makes sense. So I felt like I truly had like the greatest partner and also the greatest catalyst in Joe. I felt revved up by you at all times.
Those two kids are crazy. There was no democratic rule in Rome. The monkey had the final decision. In this film,
every fight scene I felt was telling us so much about Lucius internally as well.
Yeah.
This being your sort of first like big stunt work film.
Yeah.
What were the challenges to you of making sure that stunt, physical work, and character work was happening sort of in tandem?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that is far more interesting to me than like having a conversation around like how much chicken you eat or how much weights you lift, because you're doing it for that purpose so that you can sustain a kind of physical energy throughout the film.
Before that fight, just before, you leap onto a running horse. Yeah. How many tries did it take you? First pass?
So that was something that Ridley, I had rehearsed that for months and months and months, and in the weeks leading up to the shoot, Ridley was like, there's no fucking way you're doing that. If you come off the horse, we're fucked. And I was devastated because I trained for months, so I pestered him like day in, day out, and he was like, no, fuck, there's no way that's happening. And on the day before the stunt, I asked him, fully expecting him to still say no, and he looked at me, he goes, if you come off the horse, you owe me 2 Bentleys. I was like, we're doing it. I didn't think much about the Bentleys. And then we did 2 takes of it. That was a full adrenaline rush doing that, yeah. But it was all pretty much on the page for me, like where Lucius is at the junctions of those fights, and also there are opportunities for him to express something which looks like rage and anger, but it's actually motivated by a sense of hurt. Like you see what happens to him at the start of the film and kind of encountering his mother. They're wonderful avenues for him to express that rage throughout the film.
Well, that's interesting as well, because I feel like his rage transforms towards the end of the film from sort of revenge to then this pursuit of more collective justice.
Totally.
How did that impact your performance in the sort of latter half of the film?
Well, I think it's about committing to both things entirely, like not playing the end. Like it sounds like a basic thing, but you've got to fully invest in, as Lucius, you've got to fully invest in wanting to tear Rome down at the seams, and then on a sixpence you've got to go, well actually now I've got to step into something reluctantly, but for a greater good, essentially.
With the naval battle in particular, I loved the way that was shot. I feel like, you know, there's gorgeous aerial shots, but also really close up with you guys. Ship is breaking, you're jumping, diving. What were the challenges of filming that, particularly speaking to the character work we were talking about?
That's a moment when he starts to step into a leadership role. You kind of see him kind of dipping his toe into that world, but you see him get onto the boat and he suddenly is at the till and he accepts that his role in this moment is to guide his men to victory, and it's a wonderful kind of theatre to do that in. And visually, I just think that's kind of Ridley at his best, where he's playing with an idea and kind of magnifying it by 100.
You mentioned his sort of reluctance before. I feel like we also get hints that he's a reluctant orator. Like he's called to speak to his armies many times. What were the challenges of vocally nailing a rousing speech?
That's, I think, a fundamental difference between both films. You've got somebody who is not necessarily born to be a leader, so you don't want to play like those truthfully. If you want to play that truthfully, you can't play that he's comfortable in that environment. But a lot of it, I cut a speech that's just before the naval battle where he was kind of to give this rousing speech. And I thought it was too soon in his journey to give it. So I asked Ridley if we could just cut it down to this is about surviving. Thankfully, Ridley liked it.
You felt like it wasn't natural for him to...
It wasn't.
quite
I
have-
didn't think it made sense for him to be in that position and be... have won the men over enough that they would listen to him, but it's just a moment where they're kind of looking to someone to speak, so he just kind of goes, okay, forget about being heroes out here, just survive so you can live to see the next day.
It's, yeah, you want that to be sort of like believable and gradual.
Totally, exactly.